Okay. Hello, everyone. It is Teresa from Teresa's Spot for Art, and tonight we are painting this welcome door hanger mason jar. Okay. I have mine and yours traced out. I'm going to turn the camera around and we are going to get started. Okay, we are going to start with our white paint, and we're doing stripe number 2 and stripe number 4 because it's every other. So the second stripe and the fourth stripe are going to be white. So I'm going to put out some white paint. We're going to use the larger brush of the two. Oftentimes white needs 2 coats, but this acrylic paint dries pretty quick. So after you do the first stripe and the second stripe, you can usually go back and do the first stripe right away again. So I like to outline first. So I'm holding my brush on an angle and I'm moving very, very slowly along the pencil line to get my straight edge right there. And then I will turn it around and I'll do the same thing for this side. You might want to use the smaller brush to do this. You might want to even skip this part because you don't need to do it. I like to give my eyes something to focus on, especially when I'm color blocking like this. So now I have that nice space there. And I can load up my white paint and I can come in here and do my first coat of white paint. It doesn't pay to do a thick first coat. You just want to do a thin coat and get it covered. You have to do a second coat regardless, but then doing a thin coat helps the second coat because it's dries much quicker. And I'm just using the big brush with big strokes and going up and down. And I'm going to do the same thing for the second stripe. Don't worry if your lines aren't perfect. We're going to be adding detail. We also do the white ones first. So when we go and do the red, it's easier to clean up the white with painting red over it than it is the opposite. So I'm just slowly making a sort of straight line and blocking out this stripe as well. If you hopped on late, we are starting with the white paint and we are painting the second and the fourth stripes white, and they will need 2 coats. When I do these wood cutouts, I like to paint the edge also. So where I have the white, I'm just going to paint a little bit of white on the edge. And the white only comes to the bottom on this part. So we just have to do this little bit on the bottom. And then I'm going to go back. Usually the second time I do it, I don't do a straight line again because I already have this whole area to follow with my eye. I don't need another guideline. And I just keep loading up my brush with paint and doing a little bit at a time and pulling it down nice and slow. And then I'm going to do my second one. And don't worry if you can see your pencil marks, because when we do our second coat and the details that we're going to add, those should get all covered up. Make sure you have enough paint on your brush and that you're not removing paint as opposed to applying it. Because if your brush is dry, you will pick up the paint instead of lay down a new layer of paint. And then you'll be wondering why your paint's not covering. So don't be shy about picking up paint and putting paint on your brush. Okay. When you are done with your white, do not wash your brush yet. We're going to keep going with white. We're going to put in on a little black. Yeah, give you guys another minute or so for that. Okay. With the white paint still on our brush, I'm going to add a little bit more. We don't have to clean it up, is all that I mean. We don't have to put it in the water. I have the white on my brush. I'm going to just dip a corner of it in my black. So now I have mostly white on my brush, but I dipped a corner in the black. And we're going to skip up here to the top of our mason jar. And we're going to do the lid. So I'm picking up white. I'm putting the corner in black and I'm going back and forth up here. We want it to be a mixture of different values of gray with some white and some black streaks. It's almost like we want it to look like faux metal for the cap of our mason jar. Again, I'm adding a straight line here. And I'm going back and forth. If yours starts to become just one gray, pick up a little white. If it starts to become too dark, pick up a little white. Or if it's way too light, pick up a little bit of black and just add it in there. We're going to come back in again and do some outlining and some shading and highlighting of the cap as well. We just don't want this to be a solid color if we can help it. Yours is going to look a little different than mine, but as long as you have there's variations in it, it is good. And again, I'm going to use my brush and I'm going to paint around the edge. My edge is mostly painted already because I did it last night. But I'm going to touch it up a little bit anyway. You guys are painting, so I can keep painting. Sometimes when we do the edge, we will get a bubble of paint around the lip of our surface. And then you just want to go back in and smooth that out. Like around here, you can see it's got a little bit more white. Okay. Turn it around again. So the first thing we did was paint our 2 white stripes. And then with the white still in our brush, we picked up a little bit of black when we did the cap of our jar. And now I am going to wash my brush. And we'll put out a little bit of the blue paint. I'll give my brush a good wash and a good dry on my ratty rag right here. Okay, the next part we're going to paint is the blue. So this part is in the middle between the cat and where we have our stripes. So I'm going to load my brush up with some blue. I am going to add a tiny bit of black, tiny bit. I want to deepen my blue a little bit and make it a little bit more rustic or folksy. So just a tiny bit. You don't have to, you can if you want, it's up to you. And I'm just going to start painting in this section of our wood cutout. Again, I want to make my line here. This helps my eyes. You could tell when I'm concentrating or having to keep my hand real steady. I won't talk as much. So there. And then we already have our line up here, but I'm just going to come in here with some blue anyway. Go right across. Okay. And we're going to fill in this whole section with the blue. I just put a piece of scrap cardboard underneath mine. I don't mind getting it on my table, but if I can put something on here to protect it, unless I have to clean off my table when I get around to doing that. And a little more blue. And again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paint my edges. I'm going to wash my brush again. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do our red stripes. You want to make sure that your white is absolutely dry. I'm doing the same thing with my red that I did to my blue. I wanted it to have a little bit more of a deep, folky kind of color. So I'm adding a little bit of black to my red, toning it down a little bit. But you want to make sure that your white is perfectly dry. You can start on the outside if you want, because if your white is not dry, you're going to end up with pink, and we really don't want that. So do the outside ones first. Do this one if you started on line second first, and that's the drier one. Do whichever stripe first where your white is the driest. You can even touch it, make sure it's dry. Do my edge. I'm just making a halfway decent straight line all the way down next to my white. Smoothing out my strokes. If you get a little bit of red on your white, your hand slips, your paint drips, use your finger or your paper towel and wipe it off for now, but then let it dry completely before you go back and fix it with the white paint. If you try and mess with it, you're just going to end up with pink, and we don't want that. So wait for it to completely dry. Wipe it off with something so it dries quicker and it's not as wet or deep or as thick. And then let it dry and come back to it later on. If you have to do a few horizontal strokes to get close to the blue and make sure you get in all the nooks and crannies, that's okay. But then just come back and smooth out all your stripes and make sure they're all going in the same direction. Yeah. Mm. Your guys' red may need 2 coats. I added a little bit of black to mine, so mine doesn't really need 2 coats. I am going over this stripe because this stripe ended up much lighter when I mixed my paint than the second two. You should be able to tell if your red needs a second coat or not. I got a little dot of red up there, but it's pretty much dry, so I can fix it with my white paint in a minute. I got a smaller brush, pick up a little bit of white, and fix this up here. Just touching mine up a little bit. So now we have our entire thing base coated. Our white stripes, our gray cap, our blue, and our red stripes. We'll give you guys some time to get to this point.
I didn't get that stencil.
It's not in your thing?
Nope.
Who said that?
Karen,
Karen, okay, I'll drop one off at the library tomorrow for you.
okie dokie,
You could just sit and watch the rest with the details and whatnot.
okie dokie.
It's clear. You sure it's not in there?
Check again.
Not because I don't want to drop you one off, but this way then you can
No, I
keep
know. No,
Okay, so sorry.
I
I'm
checked
gonna.
the floor. I got your card. I got your stencil. I got the welcome, the tie, but not that.
So you got the welcome and the black graphite, but you didn't get the little plastic stencil.
Nope.
Okay. Karen K. I'll get up and when the library opens, I'll drop it off and then you can go at any point you want.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, just so
Yes,
you know, and it's gonna be used,
that's okay.
but that shouldn't matter, okay?
No, it doesn't.
And it doesn't matter, and and all of you out there, this is a reusable stencil. It's pretty decent Mylar. I don't know what you would use it for again. You don't have, you can toss it, but if you want to ever stencil some stars on something, hold on to it. Karen K. Star stencil. Because I collected them back from last night, so I have a bunch of them. So I'll just stick one of those in an envelope for you and leave it at, with
Cool.
Miss Angela.
Thank you, thank you.
You are welcome. Okay, we are to the stencil part. If anyone else is missing a stencil, please let me know. I hope not. I try to be so careful, you guys. But anyway, this is the stencil. It is reusable. It's made out of Mylar. Yours, I have, let me see. I do have a small one. Let me grab the small one. Okay. Yours fits, basically. I'm going to use a different stencil for mine because mine's bigger. However, if you see on the sides, the stars come pretty close to the edge here. You don't have a lot of buffer for not making mistakes. So what I like to do is get my paper towel, or this works too. When you line your stencil up and you were going to stencil, which I'm going to show you how we do it, I put a little piece of paper here and hold it down with my one hand while I stencil. This way, if my brush goes over here, I have less chance of getting the white paint where I don't want it, because the stencil is not covering up the whole area. And then I'll come over here, I'll move it to this side, and I'll hold it like with my finger and we'll stencil. This way we avoid mistakes as much as possible. But it's so easy if you get the white on the blue to clean it up. Anyway, okay. So here is mine. I have this bigger stencil. I am just going to eyeball it. We're going to use the larger brush that we've been using. The very most important thing about stenciling, you've probably heard me say this before, is the paint. I just wash my brush off really good. So we're going to go into the white. The less paint, the better. And we don't even have to have I can see some blue through my stars. This is very rustic. It's a mason jar. It's patriotic. These stars do not have to be perfect and really, really white and pristine. So the less paint you use, the better. So I'm gonna line mine back up again. Okay. Keep my fingers on it. I'm gonna take my larger brush. I'm gonna load it up with some paint. And then I'm gonna pounce it on my palette. I'm actually pouncing out a lot of the paint. If you have a stencil brush, if you have a makeup brush, if you have something else that you stencil with, that's fine too, that'll work. But I'm actually pouncing my brush and I'm offloading the paint. And now I'm gonna come back to my stencil and start pouncing in lightly, light pressure, and pouncing in my stencils. I mean, my stars from my stencil. I'm gonna put this piece of paper up here to watch my gray line. This way my stars don't go up into the cap. Move that, pick up a little bit more paint, pounce it off, and then come back. If you want to lift and take a little peek, go right ahead. And again, these, we're gonna put, and you don't have to put the welcome over it, but if you're gonna put the welcome over it, it's okay that these stars are a little bit faded in the background. They definitely do not have to have like 2 coats and be bright, bright white. If you're not gonna put the welcome and you want them as white and pristine as you could get them, then I would suggest doing 2 coats and leaving it at that. But if you're gonna put the welcome on, then it's totally okay if your stars are just basically white and not perfectly pounced in a bright white like we when we did the second coat of our stripe on the bottom. And I think that's, I'm gonna keep my finger here again. I'm gonna lift up, and I think that looks good. Put that to the side. Is that if you have, you get white paint someplace where you didn't want it, it's okay. Let it dry, and then it's very easy to just touch it up with the blue paint. But we're gonna add some detail and stuff too, so don't worry about that for right now. Mhm. Okay. We're gonna add some detail to our jar. We're gonna switch brushes. See, I have this one down here, and I use these little tiny dashing strokes. They almost look like stitches, like kind of country farmy, denim-y, but these little tiny white lines. I outlined every red stripe with these little tiny white lines. I'll show you how we do them. But I did up here with longer strokes and little dots. And I'm going to start up here with the longer strokes and the little dots. I'm actually going to start at the top on the lid. I'm going to show you how we do the long strokes and the little dots. And then I might, so this one is different than this one. I'll show you how we do the little stripes, these little hashtag things here. But I'm going to do them longer. I don't know if that makes sense. I was babbling. I don't know if I can keep this here. There we go. I can keep it there a little bit. We work on this one. Okay. I'm going to switch to the smaller brush. I'm going to wet it so all the fibers come together. I am going to twirl it between my thumb and my pointer finger in the white paint. And the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to outline the top of the jar. We're going to follow the curve of the lid. And do a straight line on the gray, between the gray and the blue. And we'll do the same thing up here. I have my little pinky against the edge of the wood. And I'm pulling my paintbrush. And that's it. We outlined the whole top part in white. Now I'm going to take the white and I'm going to add 1 and 2 slightly curved white lines. That is the start of what's going to be our faux threads on our cap. And we're going to leave that. Then I'm going to pick up some white. And I'm going to add a white line now up here by my stars on my blue. And go all the way across. Curve down and curve down. Then I'm going to put 3 dots. 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3. So I outlined the entire lid, including the top and that in the middle where the blue, gray and the blue meet. Then I did 2 arched strokes to start out. That's going to be our threads for our cap. And I did another blue line across the white line across the very top of the blue. And then I did 3 dots on each side in the corners. Now I'm going to add another little line. And I'm going to do 3 more dots. And I'm going to repeat that on both sides with the dots. They don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to line up perfect from left to right. We're not using the back of our brush, so our dots are perfect. This is very country, farmhousey, folksy. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom, only this time I'm going to come across the bottom. And where I have a little break between stars, I'm going to put some dots. I'm going to come across the bottom again, put a few dots, and then come across the bottom again. Then, if you want to do this one this way, we're going to outline each of our red sections with these little tiny strokes. They end up looking almost like stitches. And each red stripe gets them completely around. 1, 2, 3, all 4 sides. Like I said, I'm going to do mine more to match the top. So I'm going to pull a little red line here. And then I'm going to put 3 dots. Then I'm going to pull a line And you can see mine when I'm doing, and then you can decide if you want to continue like this or do the stitches. It's up to you. So I'm basically just doing straight lines and some dots. And so now we have that look versus this look, where it's almost the stitching going around the whole entire stripe. And I'm going to keep going. And you can keep going as well. If you're doing the ones that look like stitching, it doesn't really matter how big or how small your actual little dashes are, as long as you keep making them pretty much the same. Obviously, they're not going to be perfect, but if yours are bigger than mine, it's okay, as long as you stay uniform throughout each of your stripes. Then I'm going to do the same thing, almost, on the white, but I'm only going to do the top and the bottom of the white. We're not going to go up and down the white. There's no reason for us to add another stripe here. That would just make this section too busy. But we want to do the tops of our white and the bottoms of our white in the red. So this way our entire bottom part is framed. And when I mean the bottom part, I mean the part with the stripes. I'm just doing the top of my white and the bottom of my white. So here's them side by side. This is the original, and this is the one is in the picture. It's got like the stitch marks. And then this is the one I did just now where I used the line with the little dots. Hey, if you guys can just watch for a minute, you're probably still doing your details on the bottom. I just want to show you how we're going to finish the cap. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my black paint. We're going to basically do the same thing we did with the white paint, just not as much. So I'm going to add just a few little black lines. I'm not completely going over the white. I'm just adding a little bit of black. And so I didn't cover the entire white. I just did a little there, a couple on the top, a little bit along the bottom, and on the arches. Just want to give it a little bit of shading, not too much. You just want to be able to see the white and the black on there. And then the last thing we have to do, and you guys may still be working on your bottom with the details. I'm just going to show you how we're going to do this. You're going to take your welcome. You're going to eyeball it. You can use a ruler if you want. I don't really ever use a ruler. You can leave the welcome off, or you can put it on. Totally up to you. If you like it with the stripes and just with the stars, you can leave it with just the stars. If you're going to hang this on your door, I would suggest what I always suggest, the Krylon or the Rust-Oleum matte clear spray to spray on the paint, protect it, seal it, and help it if it's outside, even if it's undercover. It helps it in the weather or in the sunshine if you're going to put it on your door or outside. Okay, so I'm going to put my welcome up here where I want it, eyeball it, and then I'm going to take this graphite paper, shiny side down, and slip it underneath. Then you can use a pen, a pencil, the back of the paintbrush, and we're just going to trace in our letters. Now these are getting transferred to the wood. And then we have to paint them on. We're not worrying about the parentheses. This is a welcome that I use for many projects because it's usually about the exact right size that I need it. And then we're going to pick it up. Now it may be a little bit hard for you to see, but there's my letters. You can paint them white. You can paint them black. You can wait till your paint is completely dry and use a paint pen or a Sharpie. Totally up to you. I think I am going to do mine in black because the other ones are in white. So this way you can see what it looks like in black. This one was white. I'm going to do this one in the black. And if you want to do it in black, like I said, not a regular magic marker, but if you wanted to wait and go in and trace your letters once your paint was completely dry with a black Sharpie, you can do that. The important thing when you're tracing these letters is that each line, I like to do the straight ones first. Each line, you lift your brush up. It's not like you're writing and you can just keep going from one letter to the next. Like when you do the circle, your brush is not going to turn and come around. So you're going to do one side of the circle and then the other side. I'm doing my M, one hump, then two humps, and then the tiny little lines along the bottom. Like I said, I do the easy letters first. Now I'm going to go back and do my C and my two E's. One, two. Now, aside from this one being a little bit bigger, this one's in white, this one's in black. Like I said, you can do yours in white, you can do it in black, or you can do it in a Sharpie. I just went in and added a little lines. Yours will be bigger, obviously. I use the same tracer on this larger cutout. So yours will take up more room on your size cutout. And that's it. And then here it is, what I painted tonight without putting the welcome on. And that is it.